I want to ban the college football playoff or any championship from LA. And while we're at it, maybe every place in California outside of Pasadena and Bakersfield. How stupid is this that we can't tailgate in the parking lot? Meanwhile, right down the road, y'all just had a parade for a game and had tailgating. Make it make sense to me, Rusty.
Let me tell you something. There are going to be some folks from Chris County, Georgia, Northwest Georgia. When they roll up in there about 24 deep on Monday in that cooler and they tell them they can't, there's going to be some discussions in that parking lot. I can assure you. I don't get it, man. I mean, what are we doing here? This is college football tailgating. That is his biggest deal. You know, that's part of the game and the enjoyment. People are flying thousands of miles, paying literally thousands of dollars. And you find out like 4 days before, oh yeah, don't come in the parking lot until about an hour before the gate opens. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, but don't worry. But you can also, if anybody's worried out there, you can smoke crack and use the bathroom in the parking lot as well. So, enjoy that. Maybe that gives a whole new meaning to tailgating if you really think about it. But Rusty, I want to talk about Georgia's health here. Kirby, you're not going to get a ton from him, and you shouldn't. That's not how this works. You don't want to disclose anything. Darnell Washington is such a huge piece to the offense overall, but obviously that run game. I mean, when you got 12 personnel with him and Brock Bowers in there, that's a whole hell of a different animal than a lot of other people's 12 personnel. Have you gotten any updates? Do you have any feeling on how Darnell's doing or any of these other guys?
My gut is Darnell doesn't go. I just, listen, this dude's 6'7", 280, and he might give it a shot, but I watched him. We're able to go in the locker room after the semifinal games. You have open locker room for 20 minutes, and I watched Darnell Washington. Like, this dude couldn't really walk. Now, I know people had reported they saw him last night, the basketball game, walking around and those types of things, but you start talking about lower leg weight bearing, and I don't care how Kirby termed it or whatever. It looked like an ankle to me. Whatever it is, the 280 pounds is a lot of torque from a dude like that on a lower leg, and he might give them some snaps. But here's the thing I'll say about that. Oscar Delp was the number 2 tight end. Oscar Delp was the number 2 tight end in the country for a reason. This kid's 6'5". He's 235, 240 pounds now. He's not an offensive tackle that can move, basically like Darnell is. But, this don't poor pitiful me, man. Oscar Delp came in, and I really went back and watched this game twice on the offensive possessions for Georgia. And I'll tell you, man, you're talking about some stuff in your neck, as they say. Oscar Delp was absolutely getting after a few guys. I was impressed. I've covered him since he was a junior in high school. I know he's a great route runner, ball skills. I know he's a physical kid. But to enter that discussion on Saturday night into that frame, I thought he did well.
It's a great experience for him, too. I know I was shocked that they said Chambliss might play. I mean, that look on the field, I thought he tore his ACL.
I did too, man. And I think Chambliss might give him some snaps, which is huge. Listen, he's not the freakiest of athletes, but here's what he is. He's strong. He can set the edge, and that's just as important in that defense. If you could set the edge and allow Smile Munden, Dumas Johnson, those guys to run behind you and scrape and not have somebody, sealing you off, those types of things. I think Chambliss can give them some real good reps on Monday night, which would be huge because, man, they are absolutely razor thin at that position right now.
Yeah, I told my uncle during the game when, we saw Chambliss walking around and then he went down and my uncle's like, well, Georgia's got 30 of them they can bring in. I'm like, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. If you're playing meaningful snaps on Georgia's defense, you are really good. There's no bad players or okay players running around out there on Kirby's defense. So it's going to be interesting to see from a health standpoint. Rusty, I wanted to talk to you. We have Jeff Foxworthy coming on Monday before the game, and I asked him this question. And we're all fans of somebody, and regardless of who you root for, if your team hasn't been to that mountaintop or seen it, you think and you imagine, man, what could it be like? And you watch these other teams. You watch teams like Alabama that win all these national championships, and you wonder if it's ever going to be my time. And if you're a 40-year-old man, woman, Georgia fan, whatever, you have not seen times like this. Have you had a second to just take a step back? And I know you're really busy and you got to cover it, but this is the best time ever to be a Georgia fan. It's the best time ever to be a Georgia football fan. Have you taken a step back to kind of, realize it and just drink it in?
I say that a lot to people. Look, this is 80, 81, 82, obviously those years they lost, I think, 2 games in that 3-year span. And, that was the Herschel days. They won one national championship, played for another. But you look at the span, and I said this on Twitter the other night, but if you really go back to August 2021, Georgia has beaten Clemson, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, a number 1 Tennessee team, LSU. I mean, when you think what they have done in that span of time, it really is. And what Kirby's doing recruiting wise, I thought about it yesterday. I was like, man, Georgia's the team people hate now. Like everybody in the country's rooting against Georgia Monday night. Everybody's going to pull for TCU, just like everybody used to pull against Alabama around the country. If you wouldn't, if you're not rooting for an SEC team or rooting for Alabama, everybody goes against the SEC. But I thought about it really yesterday. I thought, man, Georgia might be the team that everybody hates. So things change. But you look at this and what Kirby has done. And listen, we got a whole offseason to get into this. If Georgia wins the national championship Monday night, it is by far, and I mean, I will stand on the table by far, the best coaching job that Kirby Smart has done, because this is not the most talented team they've had. There's some holes in some places they've been able to maintain and kind of cover up. So as you get into the offseason, you want to talk about rosters and what they just added in those 2 wide receivers and what they've got coming back. Georgia will be heavy in discussion. Listen, you don't want to talk about back to back to back if they're able to get to that point to talk about it. But Georgia's roster in the offseason, they're going to be really, really deep.
Well, it's turning into the online dynasty mode in year 4 on NCAA 14.
Oh, man.
Recruited just yourself. What do you got there?
Rusty, Peach Bowl. What a fantastic game. And I really think Georgia has been a part of 2 of the greatest bowl games I've seen, the other being that Rose Bowl against Oklahoma a couple years ago.
Hell, the Natty against Bama, the walk-off even though they lost.
That too. I mean, every year Georgia seems to find themselves just in a fantastic football game late in the season, and this one was no different. A lot of people thought that Georgia was just going to roll over this Buckeyes team and be too physical for them. Rusty, I spent too much time watching this team, being a part of the Michigan alumni base now. I knew that wasn't going to be the case, but I didn't think the Buckeyes would find themselves up 14. What are your thoughts on the fight that OSU put up and then Georgia's ability to come from behind and close it out late?
I had Georgia fans kind of getting into me on my prediction. I said 38-31. They're like, there's no way they're scoring 31 points. Well, they didn't. They scored 41.
Yeah.
They sit there and listen to this for 30 days in a row. And if you don't really grasp, I know you do, if you don't really dig into a roster, that's a damn elite roster, especially on offense. And they had some injuries, and an opt-out there at wide receiver. If they have Trayvon Henderson and those guys, I mean, that roster is insane good. I just felt like this matchup, you look at the common denominator of what has beaten Kirby Smart in 2 years. It was Florida 2020, quarterback play, and elite wide receivers, Kyle Pitts, all those guys. The Alabama game, 2021 SEC championship, they couldn't cover Jamison Williams, and that crew. So that's what gives Georgia. If you're going to beat Georgia, you better be 3 or 4 deep at wide receiver, and you better have a hell of a game on your quarterback. And I'm going to tell you right now, the running of CJ Stroud is what set that game different, because Georgia will play TCU differently. But I saw them try to rush 4 and stay in man, and Ohio State would run those backers out with somebody. And CJ Stroud, even when Georgia dialed it up a couple of times and he was able to break loose, he damn near won that game with his legs, much less those throws he made. Because I'm telling you, I was at an elevated view, and some of those throws he's making, wow. I mean, that dude had some flat-out juice. Yep.
Yeah, he's pinpoint.
As impressive as CJ Stroud is on the field, he's starting to impress me even more off the field with his character. I'm pulling for this kid, man. I think he's going to be a great player.
I am too. And hopefully, Ohio State quarterbacks really haven't worked out in the league.
No, but I think these last two, CJ Stroud now going into the league. Yeah. You look at what Justin Fields is doing with the Bears. They've gotten a couple right, which a former Georgia guy as well. So they've been getting.
Well, look,
right.
If you're the Texans, you're in a good spot with some of these quarterbacks that are coming out early if they go that route.
Rusty, quick question: what was your thoughts before that field goal was about to get kicked? You think it was going in?
I didn't, and I didn't think he was going to duck hook it, but the kick before barely made it.
Yep.
And I knew he was going to have to drive this one. And one thing Georgia has done well is block field goals. And I don't know if you've seen the pictures. Georgia inserted true freshman Darius Smith. And ironically, he wears 19, looks just like Adam Anderson. He's 6'5.5", like 225 pounds. He'll be a guy next year that can help them. Had an injury this year, he probably would have helped them more. This dude, I don't know his vertical, but this guy takes a penny off the top of the backboard type dude. And he jumped up, and had he kicked that thing straight, he'd have had to line drive it to get the distance. It might have hit him in the chest. So I just felt like, I thought, man, this right here, this doesn't look good for me. And I had a great view from the press box. I was on the right end of the press box. So I'm literally sitting lined up with him. And it's a lot, man. That's a lot to ask somebody. And again, CJ Stroud said it best. It doesn't come down to one play. We all, it comes down to all the different plays. But I just felt like I said, man, the odds are stacked against this kid. And it wasn't even, it wasn't even close from the start.
Yeah. How about that? Right when New Year's hits. That guy,
it was unbelievable.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah, I was in a bar watching on New Year's. The amount of Georgia fans that didn't even care that it was New Year's, but cared that man missed that field goal was absolutely.
Well, and the craziest part about that is that was the second biggest special teams play of the night. The first one was when Kirby called the timeout when he knew the fake was coming on punt. That was the biggest.
You guys watch ESPN? You watch ESPN? You watch that broadcast where they do the.
Man, I didn't watch all 37 different channels they had it.
Well, I know it's crazy. I went back and watched the replay because I wanted to see Kirby's reaction on that play. And if you'll watch Kirby every special teams, this guy's like every special teams play, you can tell he is a ball of nerves because he doesn't want to lose a possession.
He's a defensive guy. I get it.
I mean, like punt returns, like he's like you see him like grasping his fist, like fair catch this damn thing. Let's just get the ball, But you see like the moment when you watch him, you see the moment he stops and he's got his thing and you can tell he's like. He looks to the right, like, oh, something's not right.
Yeah.
And he pops for the timeout, and the formation in Ohio State, which is ironic, they had 12 guys on the field, and I don't think they would have caught it. I mean, they had 12 guys on the field.
How do you miss that?
Hell of a fake.
I don't know how you miss that, but it was so quick. It was so quick formation-wise. But, they go trips into the boundary, and that one guy, I'm telling you, he is literally on the freaking sideline. So, crazy play, but I agree. With 9 minutes to go, if they get that first down, odds are that game's up. Georgia was the margin of error was done.
Yeah,
everything was over in the fourth quarter, down 14.
That's exactly right. Well, the thing is, as a special teams coordinator, because obviously you do punt and punt return. You're looking on punt return. If something looks funny, it is funny. You know what they tell you? If you see something, say something. In like society, that's exactly what it is in football. It smells funny, something's up. If it looks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, it's a fake. It's call timeout. Blaine, do we have
like Justin Fields is an up back on a fake punt?
Yeah. Well, see, I'm telling you, Rusty. Some of the smartest things I've ever seen, because you give the depth chart to the other team halfway through the week. We would always put a quarterback as the backup personal protector on punt or one of the guys in the shield. So when that special teams coordinator looked at it, when he looks up those numbers on the roster and sees that name, he says, oh God, we can't go after any punt because they're going to fake it. It keeps you from getting punt blocks to play safe. Mind games, man. That's what it is. But anything for the Booster Club for Rusty?
Yeah, Rusty, we got a question here from Travis Elrod, a little bit to flip the script on you. He says, what will TCU need to do to win this game?
Pray.
Score. I think they're just going to have to maintain with Georgia offense. I think the biggest thing that scares you to death is his legs. Max Duggan, he wants to run. That's the difference. They'll run power with him. And you look at this guy, he's going to challenge Georgia, especially in the red zone. I mean, they'll basically run quarterback sweep with him. And 4 yards is a win for them. So Georgia's got to they got to get physical with him because he likes that. You got another unit. You faced Marvin Harrison Jr. last week. Now you got one in Quentin. This dude at TCU, I think Georgia fans, I don't know if they know enough about him, but man, when you see that guy,
you're gonna.
Yeah, they're going to see him for sure. I mean, this guy, I'm praying that maybe this guy ends up in the Falcons some way, somehow. Just I know I piss every Falcons fans off, draft another wide receiver. I don't care. Let's get this guy. But I'm telling you, you got to tackle in space, and then for TCU, you got to score. You got to score, and you got to find a way. Here's the most underrated thing in this, and I don't understand it. Here's the most underrated thing about Georgia, and nobody talks about it. Georgia's offensive line is ridiculous.
It's nuts.
He's been sacked one time in 6 games. And you look at the left tackle, Broderick Jones, he's going to be a first rounder. You look at the right tackle, let me give you a stat. The right tackle, Warren McClendon, who started about 40 games at Georgia, was out. They inserted Amarius Mims, and he's going to be an NFL first rounder next year. So they had 2 first rounders. So TCU's got to find a way to create some pressure somehow. And Ohio State did a good job of keeping Stetson Bennett in the pocket. He just made some throws on him.
Yeah, well, that 3-3-5, it's interesting when you're going against it. The best thing that Georgia has is that size advantage. Those gaps are really small. So even if you're bringing guys from helicopters and anything in the 3-3-5, it's tough to get there. But Rusty, score prediction if you don't mind, my friend. Or are you waiting this one out?
I haven't made a quote-unquote official one yet, but if I'm just right now, I would go probably Georgia 35, TCU 20.
Yeah, I like that.
Cover.
It's a cover.
Listen, I've watched Kirby Smart a long time. If they get out and they're able to control them, he'll suffocate the death out of that. I mean, he will absolutely, Tennessee's a prime example, man. He got out on Tennessee, and if he realizes he can shut you down, that dude will suffocate an over and a cover at a heartbeat. So I think 35-20 is my initial thought there. I think TCU they have some confidence about them. They're going to get some big plays, but I think at the end of the day, man, Jimmy's and Joe's been there before. I just trust Georgia more. That Ohio State matchup made me nervous, and I think Georgia fans realize why. But I think Georgia is the better team here. If they don't do anything crazy, I think Georgia's going to go back-to-back.
Yeah, it's hard for me to disagree with you. Rusty, it's always great to talk to you, my friend. Be safe, enjoy the game, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks for having me on this year.
YouTube, what is up? Hey, do us a favor. It's a new year, new phone, who dis? Go ahead and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Follow us on all social media. If you like sports without the woke and don't want narratives driven right down your throat, make sure you subscribe to Crane & Company.